So let's talk about the critical period of American history. As we may have said before, when you have a patient coming into the hospital or coming into the doctor, mostly the hospital these days, they might be regarded as being in critical condition, meaning that they're alive and they may stay alive and they may get back to their normal health, or they may die. Okay, and that's the moment that we're looking at. Right after the American Revolution has been won, the Treaty of Paris is signed, and the government of the United States is created by way of a constitution known as the Articles of Confederation, and those Articles of Confederation are based on or founded on the ideals of the Declaration of Independence. That is equality and liberty and brotherhood. Okay, and but that's the ideal. Governor Cuomo. Now, you know Governor Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, who's our de facto. Not only is he, by being governor, he's the leader at the moment in this crisis for the state of New York, but he seems, in many people's eyes, the one of the few leaders out there. But I'm not talking about that Governor Cuomo. His father, and Chris Cuomo of CNN, his father, was a man named Mario Cuomo, and a very wise man, good governor, opinion, of course, and possibly, well, he certainly was thought of as a presidential candidate. Anyway, Governor Mario Cuomo, who was a tremendous orator. He was able to deliver so many inspiring speeches, and one speech in particular almost got him the nomination for president in 1984. But anyway, Governor Mario Cuomo was known to say that we campaign in poetry, but we govern in prose. We campaign in poetry, but we govern in prose. Meaning, or applied to this period of time, the critical period of American history, we had our poetry period. The Declaration of Independence, you can't find a better piece of poetry. It has rhythm, it sings. It is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful document. It's a document for the ages. We talked about that already, okay? And we will talk about that again. But it's poetry, literally and figuratively. And now that period is over. We won our independence. Britain is gone. We have the Treaty of Paris. Now we have to get down to the practical matters of government. We govern in prose. Forget the flowery language. Forget all the promises. Forget all the utopian dreams. We have a government to run. We have a country to save. And it's the Articles of Confederation, our first constitution, that is given the job of creating law and order. And we're going to look at that document. We're going to look at our first constitution. I say first because that begs the question, well, do you mean there's a second? Of course there's a second. But let's talk about first things first. Our first constitution, the Articles of Confederation. And what what is the critical period? Well, I'm reminded of a movie uh, from the 1970s, a political movie. It's called The Candidate. Okay, it stars a young Robert Redford. Who's Robert Redford? He's the old guy in the Avengers. He's the bad guy, or one of the bad guys. Anyway, in the movie, he plays a young candidate for United States Senate in California. He's idealistic. He's young. He's got all kinds of dreams, and lo and behold, somehow, some way, he beats the establishment candidate. He beats the Republican, and he is now the newly elected senator from California. And on the night of his victory, when everybody's celebrating, he's starting to think about what happens next, as he should, because now he's won the election. Now he has to do his job. What's his job? Making laws. And he turns to, in this crowded room with all the shouting and everything else, all the victory going on, he tries to find his campaign manager, ironically or coincidentally, played by a man named Peter Boyle, the actor Peter Boyle, who you know from Everybody Loves Raymond. Anyway, he turns to Peter Boyle and he tries to mouth the words, "What do we do now?" And Peter Boyle can't hear him. He doesn't have an answer for him. Peter Boyle, as his campaign manager, is already moving on. Okay, he's a campaign manager. He doesn't get involved in governing. He did all the poetry stuff. Now the practical stuff, the practical politics of we have to make a deal, and the deal that we're going to make is probably going to compromise our ideals. Our ideals are compromised into deals. Okay, and again, another story of America. It's not planting your feet and standing your ground and fighting no matter what. No. It's making a deal. Politics, the art of the possible. Well, our first Constitution is there to establish law and order and give us a structure of government. And it's supposed to answer the call as to how do we solve the nation's problems. We got any problems? We got big problems. Problems that are going to crush us if we don't solve them. And let's see, who's there that might be causing us some problems? Well, think back to that map of the United States. From the Atlantic to the Mississippi River, from the Georgia-Florida border all the way up to the Great Lakes and to Canada. That's half the North American continent south of Canada. It's a lot of property. It's a lot of real estate. And it has to be reined in and taken under control. Well, who's causing us problems? Well, we have the Atlantic Ocean. Who might be causing us problems in the Atlantic Ocean? Let's see. We have the British Navy. Who else do we have there? We have the French Navy. I thought the French were our friends. Well, that's the other French. That's the French that used to have heads on their shoulders. They don't have heads on their shoulders anymore. The French Revolution is coming, and that's going to change things. The French, the British, the Spanish, the Dutch, and inside the United States, everybody that has their hand out to whom we owe money, and to everybody that owes money, we have problems. If you look past the Appalachian Mountains towards the Mississippi River, excuse me, you'll see that there was a lot of British fortifications that were built during and after the French and Indian War. And there were a lot of British redcoats that staffed and manned those forts. Where did they all go after the Treaty of Paris in 1783? Not all of them got shipped home. Many went up to Canada. They were forces that were sent up to Canada because Canada would remain a British colony and remain part of the British Empire. But also, a number of those fortifications, a large number of those fortifications in the west and the northwest, were still inhabited by British forces. A foreign army remained on American soil, and what was the American government going to do about it? Not a lot. It couldn't. Where's the United States Army to take care of it? Not there. What about freedom of the seas? What about the United States' ability to trade with any partner that they wanted to? What about ships with flying the American flag that are carrying American citizens being stopped by the French Navy, okay, and the British Navy? The goods being taken off those ships being confiscated themselves, the sailors being confiscated and arrested and impressed into the English or the French navies. Who's going to stop them? Well, you know who. Ain't. The United States Navy? No. Not there to do the job. You go down to Georgia, the former colony of indentured servants, now the state of Georgia of the United States of America, sits on the border with Spanish Florida. A lot of the residents, a lot of the Georgians are being attacked, their villages and farms burned, and the Georgians being killed in the process by Native American tribes like the Seminoles, and they are being backed by the Spanish. So there's a lot of trouble on the borders. Where is our Border Patrol? Where is our Coast Guard? Because also, what is our border in the west? The Mississippi River. And there is not free access of the Mississippi River to Americans and America. And the port of New Orleans is troublesome because that is a Spanish protectorate and not part of the United States yet. And therefore, if you wanted to travel and you wanted to trade on the Mississippi River into the Caribbean, you're being stopped by the Spanish. Where's our Coast Guard? Not there. Okay. How are we paying our bills? We owe the Dutch. We owe everybody. But the Dutch come calling. They want their money. They want their bills paid. Everybody wants their bills paid. The government of the United States of America can't pay its bills because the power to tax is thwarted by this Constitution, by the Articles of Confederation, by the various states. Okay. In Massachusetts, there's debt collection and a lot of auctioning of farmland, foreclosing on farmers' land. And a lot of these farmers were the Minutemen that picked up their rifles and fought for the side of the colonies and fought against the British to get rid of the king and to gain our independence. And now these men and their families are finding themselves on the outside looking in on their what used to be their farms because they can't pay their taxes. And a man named Daniel Shays, Shays, rallies his fellow farmers in western Massachusetts and spilling over the border into upstate New York. And we come to find out that the number of these farmers are now in the thousands, and we have something going on called Shays Rebellion. Shays, possessive. Shays Rebellion. Colonel Daniel Shays, he fought for Washington, fought for the America in the American Revolution. Now his government is taking away his land, his livelihood, his life, and he's mad as hell. And he rallies his fellow farmers, his fellow patriots, and they are marching from courthouse to courthouse and stopping the foreclosure hearings by the judges and kidnapping the judges. Okay, things are breaking down. The idea of a law and order, stability in a society, in the American society, is going out the window. Why don't we have an army? Why don't we have a navy? Why don't we have a coast guard? Why can't we pay our debts? Why can't we bring about a restitution of law and order? It's because the Articles of Confederation have deep problems. Okay, and there's a number of loopholes in this Constitution that is going to intentionally make things difficult to keep the United States functioning. The Articles of Confederation are based on the foundation coming from the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. That there is a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of everyone, and it's going to yield a government that is a centralized government, but it is a weak centralized government, and basically giving ultimate power to each of the 13 former colonies, now states. It establishes a firm league of friendship, okay, as in the word. The 7 articles of the Articles of Confederation establishes a confederacy with a weak central government. There is no president for fear of concentrating too much power in one person, in one entity. There is a Congress. There is not a national court, and there is an inability. Oh, another problem is with this is the fact that currency, a United States currency, does exist, but it exists alongside state paper money, and it stands along with, in fact, is weaker than European currencies that are being used. So a very poor, weak currency to a very poor and weak Articles of Confederation means also that we're not going to be able to pay our debts. Okay. So we, but again, it's exactly what we were looking for. The Articles of Confederation were intentionally made this way so that we could end up with no king, okay? That each of the 13 original states retained a lot of their own power, and they would come together under the Articles of Confederation for common defense and a few other things. But what you needed as an agreement percentage is 9 states out of 13. Okay? Not a simple majority. That would be 7 states. You need 9. Okay? 9 out of 13. A supermajority, if you will, a much more difficult majority to get. So, tax revenues to take care of our problems and pay our debts, they're not going to agree to that. They're not going to agree to a stronger, more centralized government. They wanted the national government to be weak and subservient to the 13 state courts, governors, and legislatures. Okay. So by 1787, the culminating, or the straw that breaks the camel's back, many say, is Shays' Rebellion, where the New York militia and the Massachusetts militia are trying to beat back Colonel Shays and his army of disgruntled farmers, patriots. But there's no national army to answer the call, and there's no real American currency to pay our debts with and to carry on international trade. We're gasping, if you will. We're taking our last breaths, and it's decided that we better get this government into the ER. And let's see what's wrong. Let's see if we can't revive this government. Let's see if we can't keep the United States of America alive. So, where do we go? Back to the scene of the crime, if you will. We go back to Philadelphia. Where do we go in particular? We go to Convention Hall, the place where the Declaration of Independence was signed, the place where the Declaration of Independence was debated and ratified. They're going to go back in 1787 to meet and decide what to keep and what to throw out of these Articles of Confederation. This government that is truly democratic, but that democracy can't be what we call a suicide pact. A suicide pact, P-A-C-T. We can't go so far as to hold on to our ideals while we're going down in flames. Something has to give, and it's going to be the Articles of Confederation. Okay, so that convention in 1787 in Philadelphia is going to be the Constitutional Convention. And what they're going to ratify, what they're going to produce in the end, is a government that, while democratic and Republican, small d, small r, they are not going to resemble anything that the Articles of Confederation gave us. Okay? So, next time, this new Constitution, the second Constitution, is improved Constitution with a strong central government with 3 branches: division of power, separation of powers, delegation of powers, and the possibility of actually having a written Bill of Rights is all coming up. So stay tuned. Bye for now.